Joining us now is filmmaker Ami Horowitz. Ami, it's great to see you again. Let's start with Munich. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is right now trying to spin her way out of her train wreck appearances at the annual Munich Security Conference, where it was just gaffe after gaffe after gaffe. I mean, there are now legitimate questions around how much she actually knows, other than the lines that she's been given. And what shocked me is that she'd been preparing for this conference for months, yet she couldn't answer really basic questions about foreign policy. She revealed that she didn't know where Venezuela is. It was such a disaster, but she's clearly panicking now. She's since been on the phone to a reporter at the New York Times to explain what on earth she was doing there. And she claims, no, it's not because she wants to run for president. I don't know who got that idea, but it's because we need to sound the alarm bells about inequality that is fueling far-right populist movements. Can I get your reaction? What are your thoughts on AOC's performance and what she was really doing in Munich?
Who's not surprised that she doesn't know what she's talking about? Okay, not this guy. I think it's pretty obvious. And what she did was she opened her idiocy to the entire world. But nobody in the U.S. who's been following politics is shocked by this at all. She specifically talked about Venezuela being below the equator. And of course, that was a gaffe. But it does signal a larger kind of narrative for her, right? Because she wants it so badly to be there because this whole leftist viewpoint that it's a South versus the North. And that's the conflict that we're in geopolitically. And that we, the North, have been putting upon the South for years. So it kind of fits. I think what's fascinating also is that you see all of the center left, right? The media going after her, attacking her. Why? Because they are so afraid that she might win the nomination. That if winning the nomination, would throw away a golden opportunity for the Democrats to return to the White House. They are so scared of that even they went after her where they normally wouldn't, because they want to make sure that she is not the nominee. Yeah, it was fascinating. It was a train wreck. It was a tire fire. And Gabreilla, I was here for all of it. Love to see it.
Yeah, we do. And you're right about kind of the left-wing critics really going after her. I mean, the Washington Post editorial board said that she appeared out of her depth. Former CNN journalist said that she was not great. I also want to talk about Gavin Newsom, who again claimed that the January wildfires last year were so catastrophic, not because of his failure to prepare the state, but because of climate change, Ami. But Gavin Newsom signed a clean energy agreement with the UK government, so the UK and California will work together in investments in green energy, which will supposedly going to be cutting bills for families. I'm not sure about that. Donald Trump says that the UK has got enough trouble without getting involved with Gavin Newsom. The worst thing that the UK can do is to get involved with Gavin. If they did to the UK what he did to California, this will not be a very successful venture. Ami, is that a bit harsh from Donald Trump, or has he got a point?
Look, both things can be true, and both things are true. Look, do I love the President of the United States using terminology like Gavin Newsom? I do not. But, like I used to tell my kids all the time, you get what you get, you don't get upset, okay? Look, we voted for Donald Trump. Donald Trump is our president. Good Trump and bad Trump. Now, I think that good Trump outweighs most of the bad Trump, but the bad Trump stuff is still there. I don't like that kind of language. So be it. Look, I find the Gavin Newsom thing is so interesting. There was this famous quote by Senator Vandenberg in 1947, which said that politics does not leave the water's edge. And obviously, that kind of seems trite and cute nowadays. It's been generations since we no longer followed that axiom, unfortunately. And Gavin Newsom is no different. He went out on a global stage and said horrific things. For example, he's talking about how, he's trying to make an argument which is unbelievable to me that, hey, don't worry about it. This president is temporary. Don't deal with him, right? We'll set up deals on our own in California on a state level. Don't do deals on a federal level. That is really a problematic thing for our country writ large. And then he continues doubling down this weird terminology, things like, Trump is on his knees to China and big coal, how the European leaders need knee pads when they're dealing with Donald Trump. Dealing with Donald Trump is like having sex with a T-Rex. I don't know exactly how he knows what that is like. I don't question it because Gavin Newsom, he's got a lot of sex problems. He's got a hard time keeping his pants, right? So maybe that's why he keeps talking about that kind of stuff. Famously, he had sex with his best friend's wife. Look, this is part of the problem, part of the package you get with Gavin Newsom, but don't sleep on him. He would be, I want to be clear, a very formidable candidate for the Democratic Party.
Well, let's look at the options because early polling shows that Kamala Harris is actually the favourite to win the Democratic nomination if she runs in 2028. This is polling conducted by Focal Data, published in Newsweek, and it shows that Kamala Harris is the early favourite with 39% support, followed by Gavin Newsom with 21% support, and AOC, there she is, she's still got 10%. My goodness. That polling's pretty consistent with what we've been seeing in recent months. What do you make of it?
Yeah, look, there's been 4 major polls in 2026, and Kamala Harris is leading in 3 out of the 4, and the 4th, she's in the 2nd place. Oh God, the Democrats just don't learn their lessons, right? They even after, again, I said it before, I'll say it again. They have a golden opportunity in 2028, right? Things are trending toward them, yet they cannot help but score an own goal. God, Kamala Harris, this is my favorite Kamala Harris story. I don't know if you remember this, Gabreilla, but she is so cringe, right? She is somebody who can't even do something small talk, that she had to practice for a soiree with the practice attendees were people that work for her, because she had to practice on small talk. She had to practice having conversation with people in a social setting. She's such a bizarre person. Yeah, like I said, Gavin Newsom, he's creeping around there at 2nd place. I think he'd be a tough candidate to beat. And yeah, let's not forget AOC. I know she's in 3rd place with kind of a distant 10%, but let's not forget, this is where the Democratic Party is trending hard towards, right?
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders, we forget that when he ran for president, for the nomination against Joe Biden, he won the first 3 primaries, okay? He was looking like he was going to be, right? Comrade Bernie looked like he was going to win. And the only thing that saved the Democratic Party was James Clyburn, the congressman from South Carolina, decided to step in and push hard in that 4th primary in South Carolina for Joe Biden. And that's what turned the tide. Otherwise, Bernie Sanders would have been the nominee. So yeah, does AOC have a path? She most certainly does.
And I think that's certainly why she was making some noise in Munich, even though she completely denies that she would want to be president. What about Republicans, though? I mean, that was such a brilliant speech by Marco Rubio. Let's just listen to part of it.
The fundamental question we must answer at the outset is, what exactly are we defending? Because armies do not fight for abstractions. Armies fight for a people. Armies fight for a nation. Armies fight for a way of life. And that is what we are defending. A great civilization that has every reason to be proud of its history.
I think it was just absolutely outstanding. JD Vance was asked about it on Fox News today. He was also asked if he'd like to be president, which he, of course, brushed off. But he had this to say about Marco Rubio's speech.
Is that the reason why the president or Marco or me talk about borders, the reason why we talk about them spending more on their own security, the reason that we talk about them more becoming a vibrant economy again, is that we want Europe to thrive and we want Europe to succeed. The problem that we have with Europe is not that we don't like Europe, even though you hear that from the European press. It's not that we don't respect our allies. It's that they are doing a lot of things to sabotage themselves. We would like that to stop. We would like them to be an ally in the true sense of the word.
I mean, it's interesting because, of course, we'd remember last year, JD Vance's speech was a bit more aggressive. He was pretty direct as he was kind of lashing Europe for its problems, whereas Marco Rubio, he certainly delivered a strong message warning against the consequences of mass migration, but it was a lot warmer. What are your thoughts around that, and also looking at 2028?
Yeah, no, it was a great speech. I mean, and as far as 2028 goes, God, I'm so sick of this. Guys, just be honest about what you want to do. We all know that AOC is running. We all know JD Vance is running. I'd rather they just be a little more honest about it, but so be it. But no, he's going to be one of the great, frankly, it's so funny seeing Rubio and Vance talking about this, because it will be probably Rubio and Vance up until the last moments of who we decide will lead the Republican Party. As far as Europe goes, yeah, the speech was amazing and on point, because Europe is going through continental self-immolation. We're seeing it in real time. Yes, of course, the out-of-control mass immigration that they're allowing in Europe, creating all this societal and political dislocation in the continent, but it's more than that. You're talking about they're erasing their own self-identity. They're destroying the free speech is almost non-existent right now in Europe, and also the massive economic failures over and over again. Look, of the top 50 tech companies, two of the 50 are European, Gabreilla. It is unbelievable. And the way they're combating that is not saying, hey, let's have more entrepreneurship. Let's focus more on economic freedom. Let's unleash the intellectual prowess of this continent. No, what they do is they're at war with U.S. tech companies, right? That's what they're doing through regulation and legislation and these massive fines. They have fined U.S. tech companies tens of billions of dollars. Europe, this is not going to solve your problem. You have to face up that you are destroying your own continent. And this is, again, a own goal. You're doing it to yourself. You can change it. They refuse to do it. In fact, they laughed at Rubio's speech. They laughed at it. Guys, I think rather than laughing at it, you should be taking notes.
Yeah, good point. Be interesting if you were up there, Ami. Very strong words, the way you put it, but I agree completely. Finally, I want to talk about these negotiations that have taken place between the US and Iran. Those talks have been held in Geneva. The reports coming out of Geneva is that that progress has been made, but there is still a lot to discuss. This is what the president had to say ahead of those talks.
Expecting from these Iran talks in Geneva tomorrow. So I'll be involved in those talks indirectly, and they'll be very important, and we'll see what can happen. It's been typically, Iran's a very tough negotiator. They're good negotiators, or bad negotiators. I would say they're bad negotiators, because we could have had a deal instead of sending the B-2s in to knock out their nuclear potential, and we had to send the B-2s. I hope they're going to be more reasonable. They want to make a deal. Have you been told that a deal is next to impossible? No. I think they want to make a deal. I don't think they want the consequences of not making a deal. They want to make a deal.
We've also heard from President Trump just in the last few days that regime change would be the best thing to happen. So it seems as though it's a matter of when, not if, that US attacks Iran. What's your sense of where things are at?
Yeah, there's a reason why there's two carrier groups right now floating around Iran. Iran knows that President Trump's not all about talk, just like the last 20 years of other presidents said, well, we're not going to take anything off the table. Yeah, you did. You were never considering any kind of action against Iran in terms of kinetic action. But the president decided, hey, we're going to show that to be something we can use, and they did use it. And that's why Iran is back at the table. In the negotiation they're having now, look, do I think it's going to come to fruition? Probably not. But I'll tell you one thing, that they're focusing not just on their nuclear issue, right, which everybody else talked about, but focusing on things that other presidents did not, particularly Barack Obama and Joe Biden, their ballistic capability, their continuing funding of militant organizations around the world. Yeah, I've said it before a million times, it bears repeating. The Iranian regime falling will be one of the most consequential foreign policy achievements since the fall of the Soviet Union, and that's not hyperbole. That is actual fact and truth, okay? And Obama's failure on the GCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, which, by the way, you had to be smoking a joint, some California kush to have signed that, because it was an awful, absolutely awful deal, was one of the hallmarks of foreign policy failures of Barack Obama, which Donald Trump got us out of quickly. One quick story. I remember when I was there doing the negotiation of the JCPOA, first of all, the U.S. negotiators and the Iran negotiators were staying in a $1,200 a night hotel. That says a lot about our taxpayer dollars and even the Iranian taxpayer dollars. I stayed at the Marriott 100 yards away for $250 a night. But when I spoke with the U.S. negotiators, and it shows how different times have, what the changes have been since then and now, I remember talking to them over drinks and saying, well, okay, I know you're trying to negotiate, and there's a different approach to how I would deal with this issue, but we do both agree that Iran is trying to build a nuclear weapon. They laughed at me. They said, you're so naive. We're experts. Of course we don't know that. We're not certain of that. And that's what led to that disastrous agreement, the JCPOA. So yeah, I'm all for it. I love what Trump is doing. And hopefully we're going to see a new regime in Iran in the near future.
Well, we're watching it all very closely. Ami Horowitz, filmmaker, thank you so much for your time. Great to speak with you.
Always a pleasure.